What's going on, guys? BZK here. Thank you so much for watching. In today's video, I'm bringing you a PvP Sunsinger build, nicknamed the Sunslayer. Now, mostly people use the Sunsinger for PvE, but honestly, it's really good for PvP. The gameplay you'll be watching in the background is me actually using the class I'm about to show you and get like 40 plus kills. I forget exactly what I went, but nonetheless, guys, I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please drop a like, and YouTube, motherfucking peace. So I'm going to explain everything when the video is playing. So starting with the nade, we have Firebolt Grenade. Moving on to the jump, we have Focus Burst. For Radiance, we have Radiant Skin. For the melee, we have Flame Shield. And then next up for our first passive perk, we need Arcane Force. Then we need Radiant Will. Next up, we have Chaos Order. And then finally, Touch of Flame. Now moving on to the weapons. For our exotic, we're using the Mida Multi-Tool, Shotgun, obviously, and then pretty much any heavy of your choice. This class, it doesn't really matter too much on the heavy. And then for the exotic armor piece, we're using the Claws of Ahankara. So, guys, that's it. Let's get right into the gameplay. Alright, so basically, the two things this class is built around are the grenades we'll be using and how high our mobility will be. Now, if you saw in the preview, our agility was almost maxed out. It would have been maxed if we had Angel Light on, but it was pretty much maxed out, and there's a reason for that. So, starting with the grenades, we're using the Firebolt grenades. Now, the reason why we're using the Firebolt grenades is because, well, for one, the solar grenade isn't really that good for PvP. The guys have to be within the radius of it for it to be effective, and that's very situational. And then for the fusion grenade, we have to be precise enough to actually stick someone with it for it to be effective. Versus the Firebolt grenade, you can just lob it towards a group of folk and it'll chain to up to 3 max, and it'll start taking away at their health with Touch of Flame, which we'll get to in a second, and you can just finish them off with your weapon or whichever weapon you're using. So the Firebolt grenade is the lazy man's grenade. You know, we can just kind of lob it towards a group of enemies and it'll do its thing and we can just pick them off like that. So that's why we want the Firebolt grenade. Now moving on to the jump, we want Focus Burst. Now this class, like I said, is built around mobility. So the only jump that can help us with that is Focus Burst. Now you double tap A and you get a boost of speed, and you can kind of chain this together. If you double tap A, get your boost of speed, tap A again to stop your jump, and then just repeat that process. You'll travel a long distance pretty fast, and that's what we want. If you're good with the Warlock jumps, that's probably the best way to go with this whole build. Now moving on, we have Radiant Skin for our Radiance. Now the reason why we want Radiant Skin and not Fireborn is because we actually, this time, want to be using our Radiance as much as possible. Therefore, we want our intellect to be maxed out. I know for me, for this build, I have 100% intellect and my discipline's at like 80 some percent, 81, 82% or something like that. So I'll be getting my Radiance more frequently because of that, and that's ultimately what we want. We want to use our Radiance as much as possible so we can abuse our Firebolt grenades and just wreak havoc on a whole bunch of people. So moving on to the melee, we want the Flame Shield. Now obviously Flame Shield, okay, Flame Shield should be universal for any and every single Sunsinger build. The other two melees I don't find useful whatsoever. I think it was just Bungie's way of kind of balancing this class, because the last two melee perks just suck. Like Solar Wind, hitting an enemy with Scorch moves the enemy back, and then Scorch, I think, or I forget what the last one is, but it causes targets to explode when they get killed with Scorch or whatever. So those two perks aren't really that useful to me. Again, I think it's just Bungie trying to balance the class itself, but we want to use Flame Shield because obviously that increases our survivability, and it stacks really nice with Cause of Ahamkara. We have 2 Flame Shield melees ready for us should we ever need them. Now, your discipline and your intellect are going to be the ones that you want to focus on, so the fact that we have 2 Flame Shield melees kind of makes up for the fact that we don't have any strength. So you definitely 110% always want Flame Shield. Now moving on to the 2 passive perks, we want Arcane Force and Chaos Order. With these 2 combined, we have our ideal agility set for our attributes. You know, our armor is probably the weakest, then we move on to recovery, and then our agility is actually almost maxed. It would be maxed if we had Angel of Light, but Angel of Light isn't really that good, and Touch of Flame is way better, which again I'll get to in a second. But you want these two so we can get the most agility possible. And the armor and recovery is still good enough to where when we have radiant skin on with our radiance, we can still tank hits and we can still deal out a lot of damage whilst taking a lot of damage, so it works out in that regard as well. Now moving on, we want Radiant Will, which increases the duration of our radiance. Now the reason why is because the longer we have our radiance, the more nades we can throw, and the higher our discipline is, the faster our nades will regenerate when our radiance is active. That's why you want to have your discipline as high as possible, and your intellect, so you can actually summon your radiance as much as possible. So that's why you want Radiant Will. You want to last longer so we can throw more nades, and again, that's one of the two basic key points of this whole build are our grenades. Now moving on, we have Touch of Flame. Now Touch of Flame, in this tree we have Touch of Flame, we have Angel of Light, and Gift of the Sun, which grants us an extra grenade. And you would think having an extra grenade would be the way to go, but I personally found Touch of Flame to be a lot better simply because of the fact that not only do you, it's like having a throwable thorn weapon, if that makes sense. You know, you like for your nades, if you hit someone, they deal damage over time. That's what the Touch of Flame does. Also, since we have two Flame Shield melee, or two Scorches because of our Claws of Ahamkara, if we hit someone with our Scorch, that's also going to trigger Touch of Flame. So think of that as having an extra thorn. I don't know how else to explain it. I think you guys know what I mean. Like, you're dealing extra damage over time, just like the thorn does, and that's ultimately what Touch of Flame does. So, moving on to the weapons, the Mida Multi-Tool. As you can see on screen, I'm using the Mida Multi-Tool, and this thing is an absolute monster. I'm quickly falling in love with this thing. This thing is absolutely nuts. I had it in my inventory. I never thought anything of it, but I wanted to try it out. I wanted to try its perk, the Mida Multi-Tool perk, which increases your movement speed and fires on a hair trigger. And you don't think that it makes a difference, but holy shit does it make a difference. Especially when you have your attributes, when you have your agility all the way up, or as high as possible, it makes a huge difference in that regard. And that's why you want the Mida Multi-Tool, because again, along with our nades, the next most important key to this build is mobility, and the Mida Multi-Tool just increases that. Like when you walk around, it just feels like you're at a half sprint. It's crazy. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you move so fast with the Mida Multi-Tool, and it's like a 4 to 7 shot kill depending on how many of those shots hit the head. And it has ridiculous range. The recoil is good. The iron sights are clean, as you can see. And it's an awesome weapon to have. Now moving on to the special weapon, we want a shotgun. Obviously, my shotgun is actually a little bit better for this build because it has Grenader. Kills with this weapon reduce the cooldown for my grenade, and obviously for this build, that's exactly what we want. So maybe not necessarily a shotgun, but find a special weapon that has Grenader, and that'll give you the most benefit for this build. Now for the heavy, it's really up to you. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if your heavy has Grenader, then by all means use that, but really the heavy is your choice. It doesn't really matter. It kind of depends on your preference and the map. And then for our exotic armor piece, as I said before, we want the Claws of Ahamkara, simply because of the fact that we get 2 Scorch melees because our strength is low, so it kind of makes up for that fact. And also, the hidden ability in it is it reduces our grenade cooldown even farther. So you can kind of see how this whole build kind of synergizes together. But there you go, guys. That's it. That's my gameplay. I think I get like 42 kills or something like that. Please give this class a go. It is really good. You just have to get used to using the Warlock, and it's something I definitely had to get used to. But there you guys have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please drop a like, and YouTube, motherfucking peace.